look towards what brings us to meditation and what motivates us to keep going, suffering often comes up as a front runner. Over the coming weeks, I want to explore different facets of what keeps us meditating. So I think the story I'm about to tell tells a little bit about how we meet pain and distress in different ways. So I was witnessing a meeting between two people, and they had very different ways that they responded when they were hearing the cries of the world. It was a day that had beautiful, clear blue skies, sapphire water below, and a bench on which to view this vast, exquisite vista. At first, there were the usual pleasantries and delighting in this moment in time. And at a certain point in the conversation, the state of the world crept in. While looking at this beautiful world around us, there was an acknowledgement that this is all endangered. We can no longer take for granted that our children will know this splendor. Violence is escalating, with weapons more accessible, powerful, and capable of more damage than ever before. Governing bodies seem to prioritize the wishes of a few, creating a greater divide between rich and poor. Fact and fiction, so intertwined, it is often difficult to discern what is true. Both women's pain was evident, and yet their postures were noticeably different. One woman's posture seemed to be shrinking and collapsing. She was filled with anxiety as she alluded to a conspiracy she was sure was happening. The fears seemed to escalate as she spoke, creating a world in which she was a victim that felt solid and real. Her voice had a bitter tone amidst her helplessness. It seemed a hard place to be. Well, the other woman also had great concern. There was such a different tone. It was as if in connecting to the pain, it opened her eyes up to something bigger than herself, without abandoning herself. She sees a world that is crying out amidst its confusion. People losing their way and succumbing to the forces of greed and hatred. Knowing how painful this is, she holds them in her heart, asking herself, at this moment, what can I do? As she did so, her heart seemed tender, vulnerable, knowing that maybe she cannot fix this, but allowing all her feelings to move through her. Although she was concerned about the future, she could also see the woman before her who only knew how to respond by recoiling. This too was a part of the cries of the world. Had it been otherwise, there would be no common ground for these two to meet. She had a confidence and an ease that maybe for a moment the other woman felt held before the doors closed once again and the world was to blame for her pain. It seems an illustration of two very different ways we can hear the cries of the world. In the first instance, it leads to more pain. Out of that, the tendency to shut down in order to protect ourselves. But unfortunately, this leads to feeling isolated while living in a very limited world in which we are a victim. Other beings around us become the cause of our pain, and thus we become more fearful and have no agency for change. It is a fear-inducing way to live. And deep inside, we know, we have this wisdom to know we are cut off from ourselves, longing to know something different. And this is even more painful. The second woman, in hearing the cries, felt her own reaction to the pain, acknowledged it, and yet it was not confined by it. Through awareness of the pain that had stirred in her, she found a stability to keep open to the situation, aware of not only her pain, but the pain of the world around her. And this was motivating her to look and see if there was something she could do, whether to simply bear witness to the pain, seek greater clarity, or to find some small action that may help alleviate some of the distress. She had a sense of presence that was responsive and open-hearted. So what do you do when you hear the cries of the world? Does your world collapse, becoming small and fearful? Or does it stir an urge within you to meet the challenges you face? It could be our own suffering or that of the world around us that could bring us home to our very essence of love, compassion, and wisdom. And this doesn't mean we override our emotions, but rather by being with them, we can find the wisdom they point towards. The world is calling to us to listen. It's a training not to become lost in what is happening, but to look beneath the surface, to not lose our way, but to rise to the challenge of embodying the very qualities that the world is so in need of. Being aware of our emotions in this way offers a lifelong practice to find stability within the turmoil, to be able to discover an open-hearted presence that is naturally wise and compassionate. And we can use the distress itself as the way to discover these innate qualities of well-being that are our very nature, waiting to be discovered. We do this through awareness, which is the essence of meditation.